More than 30 million people call Texas home, and more are moving there every single day. It's become one of the most popular destinations. Some of those people like the hot weather, while others like that there isn't an income tax. But, Texas isn't for everyone. There are a few things to consider before moving there. Number 5. Traffic. You know that expression, wide open spaces? Well, you're probably not going to see much of that in Texas. Sure, they have a lot of land, but most of it is unused. Everyone is crowded into the cities. Only 15.3% of the population live in rural areas. The remaining 84.7% are in the cities, and they block traffic. Speaking as someone who has experienced the Texas traffic firsthand, I can say that it is not for the faint of heart. The stretch between Dallas and San Antonio was a white-knuckle kind of adventure. According to a 2018 Texas DOT study, the state's roadways had a fatality rate of 1.3 deaths per 100 million vehicle miles traveled that year. There were over 12,000 accidents that resulted in serious injuries, with over 14,000 people getting injured. Texas has been experiencing urban sprawl, so it's about impossible to get around without a car. That means there are a lot of vehicles on the roadways. If rush hour traffic causes you to have an anxiety attack, like it does me, this probably isn't the state for you. Number 4. It isn't safe. Different publications use different metrics, so measuring the safety of a place isn't as cut and dry as one might think. The one thing that they all agree on, though, is that Texas could do a lot better in regards to the safety of its residents. According to Consumer Reports, Texas is the 10th most unsafe state. They based this on violent crimes, property crimes, law enforcement officers per population, and law enforcement budget per employee, and they came up with a score of 43.1. Then you have Wallet Hub, who placed Texas as the 5th most dangerous state, based on the categories of personal and residential safety, financial safety, road safety, workplace safety, and emergency preparedness. Under each of those categories, they measured things like DUIs per capita, road quality, unemployment rate, debt per income, poverty rate, number of mass shootings, assaults per capita, and law enforcement employees per capita. After they crunched all of the data, they assigned a score of 38.84 to Texas. In comparison, the safest state, Maine, received a score of 66.02. One reason that Texas gets a bad grade in terms of safety, sadly, is that it is the state with the most school shootings since 2012. According to U.S. News, as of May 27th, there have been 540 school shootings over the last decade, with 43 of those occurring in Texas. That's something to keep in mind if you have children or work as an educator. Number 3. Don't mess with Texas. Or at least don't mess with their electricity. The U.S. is split into 3 sections in terms of electrical power supply. There's the East and the West, which are both regulated by the federal government, thanks to the Public Utility and Holding Company Act that was signed by FDR in 1935, which was supposed to help consumers by breaking up large utility companies and keeping utility costs at a reasonable price, which makes a lot of sense. And then there's Texas. You see, the federal regulations only applied if a power company in one state was buying and/or selling electricity to another state. So Texas decided that they were going to just go around the rules by not allowing their power grid to connect with any other states. They set up their grid to have the various Texas power companies share the electricity among themselves, but it wouldn't go outside the state lines. Usually having their own grid is fine because it's rarely overloaded. Texas is so big that it has 2 different time zones, so the demand for electricity is typically staggered. But what happens when they aren't able to produce the electricity required to meet demand, and they aren't able to receive electricity from any other states? They have power outages, which is exactly what happened in February 2021 when 3 severe storms rolled through the state. People were forced to go without heat, water, and food, with the outages affecting over 4.5 million homes and businesses. This was all due to the state failing to winterize power sources. Estimates place the number of people who may have lost their lives due to this at around 700, with the confirmed number being 246, and it was all avoidable if only the state had better prepared for bad weather. Number 2. The weather is brutal. Mother Nature in Texas seems to have a case of dissociative identity disorder, previously known as multiple personality disorder. She never knows what she wants on any given day. Hurricanes on Monday, tornadoes on Tuesday, thunderstorms on Wednesday, dust storms on Thursday, why not? Anything goes in the state. As Forrest Gump once said, you never know what you're gonna get. And yes, I just quoted a movie that's almost 30 years old, that's how I roll. Anyway, if you can deal with the various sorts of storms you might experience, what about the heat and humidity? I was in San Antonio the first week of January last year, and the temperature was 86. I was walking around in a t-shirt the week after Christmas. I can't even imagine how torturous the summer months must be. I know some people would prefer to deal with an insanely hot summer if they never have to shovel snow, but it's not for everyone. Number 1. It's hard to vote. It is my belief that Americans should be able to pick their governmental leaders and representatives. That's what sets a democracy apart from other forms of government, and when the president from Texas, LBJ, signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it was designed to enable American citizens to cast their votes free from the obstacles that were being put up in some areas, like literacy tests, harassment, poll taxes, and other bureaucratic restrictions that were designed to deny a person the right to vote. But some people involved in Texas politics think that it should be hard to vote. Not every eligible citizen is able to make it to their polling place on a Tuesday in the middle of the day, which is why things like mail-in ballots exist, but Texas wants to make it a Herculean feat for people to cast their ballot that way. First, the citizen must prove that they have a reason that the state deems eligible, such as being elderly, out of the county on election day, or have an illness that prevents them from voting in person. Then, when they vote, they have to put either their driver's license number or the last 4 digits of their social security number on both the absentee ballot application form and on the return envelope. Now, for those of you who don't mind that, do you know who else votes by mail? Soldiers! They retain their home state designation when they enlist, but I doubt very many are willing to travel back to their assigned polling place just to vote. So they request a mail-in ballot, and now they have an additional step that they have to do just to cast that vote. Human error may cause them to forget that step and have their ballot rejected, and that's assuming that they even get approved to vote by mail in the first place. This past primary season, the most populous county in the state, Harris County, had 40% of mail-in ballot applications flagged for rejection. Another thing that Texas has done away with is 24-hour voting. This was also directed at Harris County, where Houston is located. Harris County has a diverse population, not just in terms of race, but also in the types of work that they do. A lot of voters in that area have work schedules that make it near impossible to vote during the day, so the county allowed shift workers to cast their ballot in the middle of the night if they needed to do so. But Governor Greg Abbott and his cronies have removed that ability from voters. These are all things that are designed to keep citizens from participating in their civic duty, and that is why that makes the #1 reason for why people should think twice about moving to Texas. If you have other reasons, leave them in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I remain stuck in the cornfield.